أهلا وسهلا بكم أعزائي الطلاب. Uh, welcome to this class on context. Our topic is going to be about the notion context as a component for the informative translation that can convey the message properly. When we talk about, dear students, a context, we can say that a context is expected to play a major role in the process of translating, as it is the signpost that guides the translator in choosing one type of equivalence rather than another. In fact, translation equivalence is a correlative of context, although one may discuss it from a theoretical perspective in isolation of context. We can say that there are two sorts of context. We have the macro level context, and we have the micro level context in translation, in translating, or in the translating activity. At the macro level context in general, we talk about the idea that a context can be analyzed into different factors, or four factors, or four elements. Text, which is, as you see here, we have the text, right? And we have, okay, we have the text, we have text, as you see here, right? Okay, and we have here the text, we have the author, and we have the translator. Then we have text, we have audience, and here we have text. Okay, we have here a text, and here we have the audience, and we have the author, and here in the middle we have the so-called the translator. These factors of context, or contextual factors, typically may be diagrammatically represented in this triangle. So we have at the top of the triangle, we have the text, we have here the audience, we have the author, and in between we have the translator, who is going to be the major element in this equilateral triangle, with the first three occupying text, audience, and author. They occupy the three angles, and the fourth, which is translator here, it is located in the center as shown in this triangle. So the reason for the motivation, actually, for placing or having the translator in the center of the triangle is because we need to show the dynamic role that the translator plays by having a direct access from equidistance on the triangle itself here to the three contextual factors. So here we can see that the translator is in the middle, and the translator has the same distance to or with all the factors, the text, audience, and the author, text, author, and audience. So this dynamic role of the translator maybe is expected to be unclear or misleading, rather if it is located in مثلا a square. We have the four elements on the three angles, because it wouldn't give the translator the major or central role it is or he or she is expected to play. So we have chosen this shape to show the interaction among the contextual factors. In this way, the type of equivalence opted for by the translator depends upon the weight that he or she assigns to each of the three contextual factors. So, informed by the authoritativeness of the source language text, for example, a legal or religious political text usually calls for a formal rather than functional or ideational equivalence. However, if the translator deems his or her audience more relevant to his translation than the text itself, right? Than the text itself, he or she may do away with hard-going formal features in favor of straightforward, خلينا نحكي, communicative messages, i.e., he will choose a communicative translation, which is, of course, طبعا, between two quotation marks, which is audience oriented rather than a semantic translation, وهي بالعادة بتكون a text or textual oriented if in this case. So in some cases, the translator may decide to pay more attention to the author's peculiar stylistic features in order to bring out the uniqueness of his or her subjects. For example, the fiery language مثلا of the celebrity Palestinian مثلا poet Mahmoud Darwish, as opposed to the مثلا delicate language of the celebrity Syrian poet اللي هو نزار قباني. So we should note that in the translator in our model of the contextual factors above, who is viewed as a free agent, free element in the process of translation, which is generally true in the self-initiated translation. However, uh, there are many cases where a translator نفسه is commissioned to engage in a translation activity by a certain agent, be it a publisher, a political body, commercial company, etc. فبالتالي in such situations the translator operates within the constraints superimposed on him or her by an external agent. على سبيل المثال he translates مثلا a daily newspaper for مثلا TV channel, radio channel, or something like this. He is expected to observe the policy or ideological stance. So typically here, which we focus upon the political dimensions of the political dimensions of this type of translation. وبالتالي the interaction between the translation and the other contextual factors or elements is more institution than a translation or translator based. يعني بمعنى آخر إنه it is the institution that mandates its own criteria to maybe determine the type, status, kind of translation chosen. وبالتالي the competent translator should never lose sight of these three contextual factors while in the process of translation, as equivalence is in the final analysis a correlative of context. That is, the type of equivalence chosen for it depends entirely on the importance that the translator assigns to each of the foregoing contextual factors. على سبيل المثال, for example, if the translator is dealing with مثلا an authoritative text مثل legal مثلا religious political, right? He or she should concentrate on the formal equivalence at the expense of other types of equivalence, because a text type نفسه here emerges as the most significant contextual factor. To make things clearer, مثلا the key the key مثلا okay here the key biblical concept مثلا death مثلا by okay death by okay death by crucifixion for example هذا النورم أو هذا okay okay death by crucifixion is ought to be only translated into a formal equivalence مثلا له القتل صلبا here we can regardless of whether this kind of death is familiar in the target language culture or not because it is the authority of the text itself due to its religious dimensions. Similarly مثلا similarly in the Islamic مثلا when we have in the Islamic a setting in the Islamic court مثلا we say مثلا وثيقة for example وثيقة right طلاق بائن بينونة بينونة إيش بائن قبل الدخول عفوا بائن قبل الدخول right here also this is a kind of religious legal text where it should mandate its own authority to both the translator in this target language and in the source language. So it is like in English. So if we translate this in English, we say that it is a certificate uh, of irrevocable, for example, of divorce, right? Irrevocable divorce before, right? Oh, sorry. Before consummation of marriage, right? So this is actually the typical translation that goes with وثيقة طلاق بائن قبل دخول. So this expression may be unfamiliar to the listeners of the target language, right? Readers in Arabic, right? As it is in the Arabic culture, it is bound term to the Arabic culture. So regardless of whether or not it conforms to the culture of the source language, this cannot be changed, let's say, without having its own religious authoritativeness level. So by contrast, on the other hand, مثلا, so here, by contrast, translator is advised to avoid the formal equivalence in some context in favor of functional or ideational equivalence. Why? Because he or she considers the audience more important than the text itself. هذا على المعطي when the audience is given extra importance. So So in a news report مثلا or a newspaper editorial على سبيل المثال, translating the Arabic expression مثلا let's say الكيان الصهيوني, right, الكيان الصهيوني. هاي كلمة الصهيوني or الكيان الصهيوني may cause some serious problems relating to the differing connotation associated with Zionism, Zionism, right? لاحظوا كيف خصوصا يعني these days when we have this type of genocide made by the Zionists, right? So here, right? So so مثل حكينا انه it may create a kind of cause, a kind of problems relating to the different connotations associated with Zionism in the Arab world and the Western world. So here we have two different contexts in the Arab world and Western world. في Zionism is condemned by the Arabs as the racist, right? الزيونيزم الصهيونية يعني احنا متفقين على انها it is a kind racist, expansionist movement. So it is generally regarded by the Westerners as a kind of national liberation movement. So here we have two different situations. وبالتالي to avoid مثل هذا البروبلم فإن translator could give up the formal equivalence by translating the foregoing Arabic expressions into the مثلا the Jewish state, right? The Jewish state. So here the Jewish state. So this kind of illustration is proper in such context like this. Another example مثلا when we have مثلا نقول مثلا مثلا التقى جلالة الملك عبد الله الثاني بأخيه مثلا بأخيه جلالة الملك عبد الله بن عبد العزيز الملك عبد الله بن عبد العزيز, right? خادم or خادم الحرمين الشريفين, right? So here we have this type of context where we have, so here for example Saudi or Jordanian news agency translator would ignore translating words like مثلا خادم, right? Like خادم, like بأخيه, right? Something like that, literally. So he would say that that His Majesty King, right? His Majesty King Abdullah II met with His Majesty, right? With His Majesty King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz, right? Abdul Aziz, right? It's capitalized, custodian of the two holy mosques, right? So here now, okay, so here, so by contrast, dear students, by contrast, a non-Saudi, right? A non-Saudi Jordanian news agency مثلا would do away with the custodian of the two holy mosques, or even do more editing in this way, so saying that King Abdullah II of Jordan met with the King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz of Saudi Arabia. So here, without, so here, so it would be like, so it would be like the custodian of the two holy mosques, the custodian of the two holy mosques, or even though with editing, as we said, King Abdullah of Jordan, like this, King Abdullah of Jordan the second of Jordan. Dear students here, yes, of Jordan, met with King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz of Saudi Arabia. Met with King, right? Met with King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz of Saudi Arabia. So now dear students here, of Saudi Arabia. So here, dear students, so the custodian of the holy mosques or his brother and something like this wouldn't be that proper. Or maybe he would use other type of translation, would say the monarch of Jordan, met with his Saudi counterpart. That's it. Okay, there are students here. So it's a kind of political setting where we should we should make a kind of compromise for both elements. So there are finally, there are some contexts where the author is more important than the other contextual factors. نفس الauthor على سبيل المثال when translating a poetry مثلا by Nizar Qabbani and Mahmoud Darwish, the competent translator should relay the delicacy of the former, like Nizar Qabbani, versus the fiery of the latter, Mahmoud Darwish, regardless of the topics that the two poets are addressing. So, by way of illustration, the formal equivalence would fail Qabbani, who adopted in translating his verse بيروت يا أنثاي من بين ملايين النساء. So here, بيروت يا أنثاي من بين ملايين النساء, right? So here, in this type of verse made by Nizar Qabbani, we can say that Beirut, my female from among millions of women. So here, as you see, dear students, because the rather detached emotions associated with the English lexical item female are completely incongruent with the renowned delicacy. So if of this poet طبعا, فإنه this being the case, فإن translated is supposed to choose a functional equivalence by offering a smoothing, like like Beirut, right? Beirut, my beloved lady from among millions of women. Okay, so here, dear students, we can see that it is sometimes the author himself is a competent, which is a requirement for the translator to opt for or to choose the proper situation where he or she should be aware of in translating, in terms of who the what the context is, in terms of audience, in terms of author, in terms of text itself. Thank you for listening. والله يعطيكم الف عافية dear students. Okay.